Hey everybody, it's Rob here. We are getting the mid-season patch update in a couple of hours here today. We're gonna get the full patch notes. I'm gonna get a more detailed video about this. And in this video, I wanna kind of say and talk about my expectations and hopes for this mid-season patch. And we have compiled a list here together with the stream and the community of a couple of things that would be cool if they were changed. And we are talking about the boss ladder quality of life, about pits, about tempering, the bricking of items, the class balance, the Druid buffs, man, about possibly new features like they did with the Varshan rings and the vampiric powers making a comeback, maybe on some of the Uber Malthus or maybe some of the vaults, or some Season 3 mechanics in some way, and about some more expectations here that we have. But yeah, this update here is the full patch notes are going to be available here in just a couple hours later today, as confirmed. And let's just jump into it, like what I'm kind of hoping for and what we gathered here. So the first thing would be the boss ladder. So first thing here is about all these materials that you have in your arsenal here. You can do the Uber level 200 version of Beast in Eyes, of Zir, of Varshan and all these things. But the big problem with the boss ladder, I feel, is that if you're doing a level 200 version, you're kind of getting punished, because right now, if you kill a level 200 Varshan boss, you're only getting 1 egg. And I think it would be way better if you get, you pay 5 times the materials to summon Uber level 200 Varshan. I think you should get 5 times the eggs, right? So 5 times the materials for all the Uber bosses to then obviously like use this eggs to find more Uber uniques and obviously kill Duriel. I think this has just been, I thought this was a bug initially on the PTR, but it made it into the live game. And I really hope they reconsider this just so it's more comfortable, because it's no fun like fighting a level 70 Varshan version if you want eggs to farm Duriel. Like you could just, do the 200 version, have a bit of a challenge and get some higher chances for loot and also get the eggs at the same time. Another problem with the boss ladder, I feel, is that we don't have a way to resummon the boss without hitting the reset button. So you might have seen this if you've been part of a big Duriel rotation or something, that you always have to go back to town or out of the dungeon and then TP back to town to keep the portal and stuff. But how cool would it be after the Duriel kill? There's this altar where you summon Duriel, so you summon him, you kill him, and then you pick the loot, and then instead of going to town and having to press this reset dungeon button, you can just like click the altar again and you can insert, just the materials again to then summon him again. So you have way less downtime. There's like a double, quadruple loading screen, because now they changed it so it doesn't even remember that you have a portal in there when you reset the dungeon button. And this is just very frustrating. It makes it very tedious to farm, especially like long sessions of Duriel to get the Uber uniques. And there actually was, in the beta or something, there was a time where they completely removed this reset dungeon button. And I would just really hope they make it like easier to chain kill some of those Uber bosses and like really farm them, because getting sparked, and this will be later relevant for the later stages of the video, is going to become more relevant, I hope. It is already very relevant to get like the good Uber uniques with the greater affixes. It's kind of tough. But yeah, again, let me know what you think in the comments, and also let me know what you're kind of expecting for this patch to change. Next thing here, and I talked about this a couple of times already, is the pits. I feel the imbalance on the pits is very significant. The boss to the run itself has just way too much health. So they recently addressed the damage and the overlapping mechanics. That has been a decent change. But we still have a problem that the boss is just this unbeatable damage sponge, if you will, that basically can't be killed over like a realistic amount of time, especially if you're doing like, high pit pushing. It's just absolutely crazy how long the boss lives. Most builds have actually, begin and start to fish again for minion bosses, because a single target boss is completely unkillable. Even if you have 10 or plus minutes, you have 15 minutes for the entire pit, and the top builds, they spend less than 5 minutes to get to the 100% progress mark, and they spend more than 10 minutes to kill the boss. And you might have seen this as well if you tried any kind of high pit levels, that the boss is just basically a damage sponge that doesn't have any mechanics anymore. So it's kind of weird, and it's in a weird state, and it creates the same problem that people, the developers, already solved in Diablo 3, where we had a gem that basically called Bane of the Stricken, where you would do more damage against the bosses. And I feel either they need to nerf or significantly, I'm not saying nerf the pit, I'm saying, take some of the boss HP and distribute it and make the pit itself, like the actual 100%, the elites, the monsters harder, but make the boss have significantly less HP. It's not really fun to just fight a damage sponge and that doesn't have any mechanics anymore. It just feels bad, and it's exactly the problem that Diablo 3 had, where Bane of the Stricken basically allowed you to deal more damage the longer the fight continues. And they could do a mechanic like this, but I think the more elegant solution would be take the boss, shift the power into the run, or something like that. Next one is Stygian Stone drop rate. There's still like a big debate about this. I don't really think they're gonna, you know, address this again, because now I think they are dropping like on a decent way, especially if you're doing like pit 100s or something. But yeah, on the low end, it can still feel very hard to get them, especially long term, because right now, guys, remember, we have the Iron Wolf questline in the game, which gives you, I think, 6 Stygian Stones. But this one is probably gonna go away next season. And then I think the Stygian drop rate is still a bit too low. But let me know what you think in the comments. Then there's also the discussion here about leaderboards, and I am hoping that at least soon we're gonna get leaderboards for the actual end game. You know, we have these leaderboards here, and there was a lot of opportunity cost and a lot of development time that has been spent here in creating the leaderboards and the interface and stuff for the pits. But the pits are like not even, you know, pit level 1. They are like, I don't know, like Greater Rift level 70. Okay, it's like pit level 20 or something. But it's like very easy. You can literally do this with like a level 50 character or something. Like you don't have to have an endgame build. You don't have to have an endgame character to even do this, because it's just Nightmare Dungeon 70. Not Pit 70, just Nightmare Dungeon 70 difficulty. And it's, I don't know, it doesn't really like feel that it hits the mark for the casual players. It doesn't really feel like it hits the mark for the high-end players, because it's just no challenge. And I'm really hoping that we're gonna see some leaderboards for the actual endgame, which definitely is the pits right now. People like the pits, I like the pits as well. And the Gauntlet just feels meh, in my opinion. And so I really hope that we're gonna see leaderboards in some kind of way for the pits. And I also hope, and I know there's been a lot of discussion about this, but I cannot understand why you are getting punished when you're playing with your friend if you're doing pits. So if I were to open a pit, it asks me at the moment if, or it currently, if I open this, it basically spends these materials here that are rune shards, right? I have 900 of them, so it costs 3 to enter. So why not, you know, whenever I click this in a party, if I open this, it asks every party member, you know, Rob is about to open pit 153. Do you wish to spend rune shards to participate? And this is like the same way it worked in Diablo 3. And then you spend the rune shards, you're not leeching, and you're actually getting the full 100% loot. But this prompt or pop-up is not even existing. And they had this in Diablo 3 already, where it would ask you and you had to spend the Greater Rift key to participate, but then you also got the full amount of gem ups or the full amount of materials. So I think it's highly discouraging for people to not be able to play with their friends in the pits. I mean, it's a 50% penalty. It's such a harsh penalty. I mean, maybe like an 80% or something, like, you know, you get 10, 20% less loot would be okay. But like, you get literally half the loot. You're getting actively punished when you are playing with your friends. That would be insanely bad, or that is insanely bad. And I personally have never really, you know, done any, you know, pits with friends for the sake of farming materials, you know. It just like kills the fun, and you can't basically do it. Then it's also like creating a big discussion of who's going to open, you know, because that's the guy that gets the mechanic, that gets 100%, and it's just like, I don't know. I feel it's just bad, man. Diablo is a very social, is a very open game. And I think it should definitely be changed for, you know, not discourage group play. Then next here is something we have talked about in a previous video. I'm going to link that below in a lot of details. It's the tempering of bricking mechanics. This is probably the #1 most discussed topic in the community. And maybe we will see this addressed at least in some way in the mid-season patch. I really hope they do. And there could be many solutions, maybe ways to reset tempers with either sparks or scattered prisms or some other resources. Obviously, it would use a spark. This is my opinion. Unlimited resets with a spark would be okay, but I know people feel all kinds of way. We also have this very, very common material now after the Goblin events especially. I mean, let me know in the comments how many scattered prisms you have, because people literally have, I mean, at least 100 of them, like a lot of players, if you killed any type of goblins. And maybe you can make, like, I don't know, 20 or 30 prisms, because there's no way I'm ever going to find 900 items to use these prisms on. And they've been significantly buffed. You can target farm them by doing world bosses, or by doing goblins, or by doing helltides. And I think it's you know, a resource that could be used to reset tempers, or make more tempered chance when you have greater affixes. And the most important thing here, I think, for the love of God, let all classes temper crit damage and vulnerable. Like, every class has some mechanics that is scaling with crit damage or vulnerable damage, and I do not understand why you have to make a rogue or any other class, you know, to temper crit damage and vulnerable damage. It doesn't make any sense. This is like a generic stat. There should be a generic recipe to temper crit and vulnerable. And I get this question asked on stream all the time, on my YouTube, everywhere. Rob, how do you get crit damage? And you always have to understand, make people like understand this. If you want to play a Barbarian, the master of weapons, step 1 is make a rogue. And then, you know, 50% of people are already out. The most optimal way to play a Barb, guys, is to make a rogue. And yeah, I think this is not something that should stay in the game. It's just confusing for people. And I think there should just be a generic recipe for every class to temper crit and vulnerable. The next one here is a big one. And I wanted to kind of like talk, before we talk about the class balance here, kind of talk about the expectation for the mid-season patch, because we can already tell, you know, by what happened in the past, what they might change for this one, right? Like, so we can kind of like gauge the scope at least. So they always do bug fixes, and quite some bug fixes in the mid-season patches. So I'm kind of thinking, like, for example, this was in season 3, they fixed the snapshotting in a big way. And I'm kind of, maybe they will address the double dipping of damage multipliers. Right now, we have a lot of builds that are very buggy and overperforming because they are basically squaring, double dipping all the multipliers. The way this works, if you would have a 50% damage buff, it would be applied twice to some mechanics. So a 50% damage buff would turn into a more than double damage buff, into a 2.25x damage buff. This is basically the multiplier applying twice, and this is extremely unclear and also misleading for new players, because it makes, you know, the game doesn't tell you, and it's a problem in the math formula. It also works with the Holy Bolt Elixir in a big way. I'm not saying remove Holy Bolt Elixir, I'm just saying like fix some of the bugs, you know. Or I could see this happening. I generally hope they will focus on buffing rather than nerfing. But I just wanted to, like, you know, see like what they did in the past here. And I could see them change some of the double dip mechanics. And I hope, if they decide to do this, that they would buff other parts of the double dip classes to, you know, make up for it or something, right? But then probably the biggest problem is, we need some Druid buffs. This is like by far the most underperforming classes, and we're gonna look at the tier list here for a second. This is like the top clears that exist at the moment. So right now the top clear is actually by a Flay Barb, followed very closely by a Sorcerer, followed by like a Necromancer and a Bleed Bash Barb, and the Thorns Barb is also in the 140s. So these builds are all like top-notch builds. And then we have a Direct Bash Barb, we have the Heartseeker Rogue here in ST, also very comfortable, Pen Shot, Rapid Fire. And then, you know, the first Druid build is like all the way down here. It only did 122. And literally most other classes have like 20 tiers higher done. So it's in a very, very rough spot. And this is only the best Wind Shear build. We didn't even talk about Tornado. We didn't even talk about, you know, like Pulverize or, you know, Landslide or some of these. Like, this got an amazing new cool ring on the Landslide Druid, and there's just so much potential. But the Druid has a lot of problems going with the class, and there's been many videos about this already, and I agree with many of them, and I hope that this is gonna be some significant, meaningful changes for the Druid. This is also what I'm kind of like expecting, but also hoping very much. And then, this is more like my expectation. I don't really hope they do this. On Sorcerer, there is currently the Immortal Flame Shield mechanic, basically, that allows the Sorcerer to be completely invincible. And this has been happening to Barbarians also in the past, and we also had Immortal Sorcs, and this has been nerfed relatively quickly. And I don't think the game basically is based on having immortal builds. So I could see this either being addressed in the mid-season or at least in the next season. But if they do this, they need to bring some significant Sorc buffs, because this is the only thing that the Sorc has going for it at the moment. So if they're taking it away from Sorcs, I would really hope that they, I don't know, for example, bring Frozen Orb back to the former PTR glory, right? Because at the moment, Frozen Orb was a pretty cool build on the PTR, but they have extremely tuned this down, like all the way down to like B tier. So like, I would really hope that they would buff some other Sorc stuff if they decide to, you know, nerf or change this perma immortality and just bring some of the builds here, I don't know, back to the former glory like they were in the PTR. Also like Frosted Strikes or something. I think there were so many cool Sorc builds that just got like nerfed in its tracks before most of the players even had a chance to enjoy the builds. And yeah, that's really sad. So Druid buffs, Sorc buffs, maybe a Flame Shield adjustment is my expectation. We'll see. And then, yeah, Holy Bolt Elixir. I'm not saying remove it, but I could see the double dip with the pets and the double dip with some of the bleed multipliers on the Barb be adjusted. And I know, like, this is just not really my hope. I'm hoping that they just buff the weak classes to the level of the top classes. But we can't always have buffs. And double dipping and also the Holy Bolt Elixir, it's very hard to balance around that. It's the same goes for the Rogue double dipping with the Victimize. I think it just like makes it very hard to balance the class, and it's very hard for a casual player to understand, like when all your damage multipliers applying twice, but only, you know, on Tuesdays, and only, you know, if you have a green shirt on or something, or yellow, wearing yellow socks. And it's like, you know, like kind of counterintuitive, and I don't think it's healthy for the game. Not on the Bleed Barb, not on the Rogue, not on any class to have double dipping effects, and they have changed this many times in the future. We had in the past we had the Berserk Ripping double dipping, we had the Shred Blurred Beast double dipping, we had the Poison imbuement on Rogue double dipping, and just a couple of these effects that have been changed in the past because it's just misleading, confusing, and very hard to balance. So the fact that they adjusted snapshotting mid-season, I think there's a chance that they're gonna, you know, adjust the double dipping. I really hope this, because like in the long term, it's just not healthy for the game. They could also wait, and you can let me know in the comments what you think. They could also wait before they address the double dipping, maybe until the end of season. That would, I think, be ideal, not do it mid-season. But I think for the long-term health of the game, the double dipping and the wrong damage calculations need to be fixed. The MAR formula needs to be correct, and the damage multiplier should only apply once, even if you're doing a base of the damage that you've previously done, which is like Victimize or Berserk Ripping or these kind of things, right? And we'll see. And I hope if they do this, especially for the Rogue, that we're gonna see some buffs to like the melee rogues, or just in general, and this is across all classes, core skill buffs. Like, I don't know, I thought like the core skills is, you know, your main skill, or supposed to be your main skill. But the problem is, like, if I'm just looking at the Barbarian, like all the core skill section is, at this point, is support skills. You know, Whirlwind. It's basically been a support skill ever since they nerfed it like 5 times on the launch, right? It's literally only there to move you, it's there to generate fury and to inflict bleeds or proc dust devils. Or to proc Turel Smite. This is the only way, the only reason that Whirlwind even exists at the moment. Like, this could be renamed, especially on the Barb. The core skills could just be renamed support skills, because nothing here does any damage. We have Whirlwind, which has 404, no single target found. They made sure of this by nerfing it 5 times. We had Hoda, which has also been significantly nerfed recently. It's also only a support skill now, which gives you a 1.3 damage multiplier when you overpower. We have Upheaval, which is extremely sad and has no damage whatsoever. Then we have Double Swing, which is basically a way to obtain Fury or to gain Vulnerable or Berserking, or to proc your Twisters, but also has no direct damage part. And we have Rend, which has been completely left in the dust here by Flay. And Rend is just there to keep the target vulnerable or to generate Fury, basically. And this is basically the support skill section. And I think it's not much different on many of the other classes. Like, I cannot, let me double check here. There's not really any top build that is revolving around core skill, right? Firebolt, basic skill. Minions is like mastery or something. Bleed is basic, Flay is basic, Thorns Barb is Thorns, Direct Bash is basic, Victimize is Heartseeker. And then here maybe we are reaching a tier But this is also victimized build, so no. And rapid fire only works because we have the ring. So it's like, yeah, the core skills kind of need some change, hopefully. And I don't know, like, I'm not expecting all of this in the mid-season, but this is just like my hopes. You know, like, if they really wanna, you know, make significant changes in the game, this is more like long-term as well. I think the game is moving in a really good direction already, but of course it's not perfect, and there are still, you know, many ways, especially skills, that have a problem. So I really like the Loot Reborn system. But in my opinion, they could do, and they already hinted at this, like at least a little bit, for Vessel of Hatred, with new skills and stuff that have been data mined. So maybe we could do like a skill reborn or some way. We probably gonna get a new skill for all the classes, but like there's definitely problems in the class balance that have to do a lot with the individual skills that the classes have. And I just want to do one more point here on class balance. I really hope they do not nerf popular builds. I think bug fixes, and they hinted at this as well in the previous updates, bug fixes are super good, they are super cool. Bug fixes are fine, but if they would just nerf the popular builds mid-season, I think that would be the biggest L they can do. You know, like I'm looking at the Minion Necromancer, which is pretty strong. I'm looking at the Bash or the Flay Barb, that is pretty strong. You know, just like these strong builds, but they're not revolving on a bug. I'm not talking about minions with holy balls. I'm talking about basic minions. I'm not talking about bleed with holy balls. I'm talking about, you know, basic Bash Barb. And I'm just hoping that these popular builds, and also the Sorc to some extent with the Shatter, are not getting a nerf, because this would just, you know, the player base is like very positive about the game now. But if they now, you know, decide to nerf these, like, you know, popular builds that everybody likes and everybody is playing, that are not revolved on a bug, I think that would be an L, man. Like, this is like something I don't really see them doing. If anything, they do it like they did with Holder Barb. They will say that Holder Barb or Bash Barb or whatever.
So happy Anna Cake, so happy Anna Cake, so happy Anna Cake, so happy Anna Cake, so happy.
So happy, yeah. They would not do this like they did with the Holder Barb, for example. So they acknowledge it's pretty strong, and we're maybe gonna nerf it in the future. But for now, like Rod Ferguson would say, let them have fun with it. So yeah, that's what I think about the class balance, and we'll see what's gonna happen in a couple hours. I'll keep you updated. The last thing here is new features and aspects or uniques. So you guys might remember that, for example, in the last mid-season update here, they reintroduced like the vampiric powers back into the game in form of aspects. So they have continuously done this. They have done this in Season 1 with the Varshan rings. They have done this in Season 2 now with the vampire power. So I think there's a good chance that we're going to see a comeback of Season 3 in some way today in the patch notes. So maybe they're going to like reintroduce the vaults. A lot of people like the vaults, like there was some crazy way to farm. Or maybe they even reintroduce Ubermalthus, or maybe make a level 200 version of Ubermalthus. Yeah, the patch is probably going to happen just in a couple days next week. We get the patch notes today on Friday, and then on like Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, somewhere there, we are going to get the patch. And yeah, maybe they make an Ubermalthus level 200 version or something like that. And that would be pretty cool, I think. But let me know what you think in the comments. I hope the pet is not making a return. I didn't really like the construct, and I think it was not really like a popular season theme. So I think Ubermalthus is good as a base addition to the game, or maybe even the vaults, but let me know what you think in the comments. And yeah, last but not least, here some unrealistic or cope stuff. Obviously, we need Armory, we need loadouts. It's actually crazy that the game didn't launch with Armories. We need a loot filter still. Like, just let me, or just let the pet. We have this new amazing pet, guys. So I just need an option, like even instead of a loot filter. Can't I just have my kitty or my dog eat all the yellow items, just like we have in Diablo 3? Make the kitty eat every yellow item. Like you can, I don't know, there's a setting or something, you just go options, gameplay, whatever. And then you just tell your pet, yes, please salvage every yellow item that you see, so I don't have to pick it the fuck up. And just give me a veiled crystal that you auto pick. Wouldn't that be cool? I don't know, something like this, or some loot filter to kind of disable everything that's not a GA or auto salvage, or the pet eats everything that is not a greater affix item. And yeah, more stash space is still a big problem. Maybe the minion AI, world tier 5, maybe we even talked about the possibility of the mind cage. You know, we have this new hell type material like long term. maybe you can stack it, right? Like you have many of these mind cages, you get a lot of them if you do the Hell Tide. So consuming one of them raises the Hell Tide by 10 levels. Consuming 2 of them, this would be the new feature, raises it by another 10 levels to a total of plus 20. And then you can do 30, 40, 50 levels higher, and so on and so on. Maybe there needs to be a limit at level 200 or something. But why not allow us, for example, to you know, stack multiple of these mind cages? That would be pretty cool. I think it would juice up the Hell Tide, make it pretty cool. But we'll see. That is my thoughts and expectations for later today, guys. Let me know what you think in the comments. I'm definitely going to be live streaming this entire thing, and we're going to be talking about it. I'm going to make an updated video, and I'm really hyped, guys. There's so much cool stuff coming at the moment in Diablo. We have the Vessel of Hatred expansion. We're probably going to get a PTR here the next days as well. We have more information about Vessel of Hatred in July, and the season is already starting on August 6th, and then the next season is starting 2 months later in October 8th. So there is a lot of things. The forges are burning hot. It's pretty cool. The game with Loot Reborn, and we finally have an end game with the pits, is finally moving in the right direction, and we'll see what we're gonna get for today's patch. Let me know what you think in the comments. I'm stoked for it, and I'll see you soon. GG. If you like this video, make sure to subscribe, leave a like or a comment. I'm also live on Twitch almost every day, so come and say hi.